Hey, what up? What up?
What is up? I'm good. How's everything at your end?
Excellent, thoroughly excellent. So Sameet and I have got together today to do one of our favorite things to do. You can't deny it. You're as much a fan of it of this as me,
Oh,
but
I absolutely love busting myths.
so
Yeah.
yeah, we have come together to bust some common nutrition and fitness myths. Before we go into any of that, like please subscribe to the channel and please comment on anything we don't cover or anything that you want us to cover in more detail, because this tends to trigger other things for people where they say, what about this or what about this? So if there's other things you want us to do future ones and cover more stuff, because we've got a little bit of limited time. So we're going to try and cover like 4 key ones today, but there are how many of them, like gazillions. So
Thousands more, yeah.
we
We
could
could
we
have
could
covered.
just spend hours every week just doing this, and we would happily both do it, I'm sure, because we both love it so much. But why do fitness and nutrition myths like annoy you so much? Why does it get under your skin so much?
So I think for me, it's kind of personal. Because when I started getting into fitness, uh, these are all of these myths that I'm busting are all myths that I personally believed in at one point. So like, uh, I used to do HIIT, even though I hated it. I used to do HIIT every day. Uh, I've stayed away. I left. So like my intake of Coke, regular Coke, was extremely high.
Mm.
And then because I
Just
started gymming,
Coca-Cola, we should just clarify.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, Coca-Cola was extremely high. So because I started gymming, I was like, I can't do both of these things at the same time. So I just like cold turkey left. It's like zero intake one day, and then I maintained that for a good 7, 8 years of no like any beverage,
Wow.
juice. Like I was just my personality was based on the fact that I'll have water, and I used to think I'm superior to other people just because I have fucking water. Um, but yeah, over time, even when I realized that like Coke Zero is a thing and it tastes pretty much the same, I still refused to have it because I was like, no, no, I've read that this can cause cancer, this can cause this. I don't even remember what all I believed, but thankfully over time I realized that just educated myself and realized that isn't the case, and you can still enjoy these things and make progress, still be healthy, all of that. There was a time where I believed this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever done, I think. But there was a time I believed how, complex carbohydrates are the shit and you need to have them to like build muscle. So, I used to go to like a HIIT class and they kind of made me believe that somehow sweet potatoes are magic for building
Oh
muscle.
God. This
And
potato thing.
so my entire carb intake, which was roughly 500 grams of carbs in a day, came from sweet potatoes. So
Ah.
it was, I think at one point I was eating like 4 kgs of sweet potatoes in a day, and I didn't have an air fryer or anything like that, so I was just like boiling them and having them with like some spice on it. Fucking hideous. It tasted horrible,
That is
and
that is misery.
yeah, and it like the a point came where I was just fed up of sweet potatoes, even though I used to love having them initially.
Yeah.
So one day I was like, I cannot like even start to have these 2 kgs of sweet potatoes in front of me. So I added boiled sweet potatoes to a blender, added some water in, blended it into, I don't know if I can even call it a smoothie. And I had that, the most disgusting thing I've ever had in my life. But yeah. And since then, I think I've now it's a lot better. But like after that, I kind of messed up my relationship with sweet potatoes because I could not eat sweet potatoes after that for years just because I was so fed up and like had this negative association with them. So this is why these myths annoy me, because I know I've seen it firsthand, like the damage they can do to someone.
Mm.
So that's me. What about you?
No, same. And I think what irritates me the most, and why I think they crop up so often, is because they tend to come from like a place of, maybe there's more than one facet here, but it's either like somebody like attention or engagement seeking, like they're trying to tell you something really shocking, which is normally telling you something it's like either something's really good or really bad. So it's that like dichotomous like spectrum of no food can exist here, how dare it has to be either here or here. Or they're trying to sell you something, or a combination of the two. And I'm still convinced like most of this stuff comes from like either companies paying for research to prove that something else is bad to put a halo around their own product or whatever, or like somebody's like misinterpreted a study for the purpose of writing a whole book about it. And I'm not going to name any names here, but there's like super common names that come up all the time in our industry that are making like multiple millions of pounds selling books and like subscriptions to online like portals and stuff, and it's just so obscene. So that's why it annoys me more, that I think that's what like continues to pervade them, like make them so pervasive, is that there's big voices behind them a lot of the time. They might not have been the voices that created the myth in the first place, but they've just found that people sit up and listen. And we know a lot of that common sense stuff we tend to talk about just isn't as sexy or as appealing a lot of the time than saying like, oh, don't ever drink this, you'll die.
Yeah, I think that's another reason behind why these myths are so common, because like they're extremely easy to believe in. Because like stuff like even your artificial sweeteners, what I see most of the time is like the appeal to nature fallacy stuff going on.
This is a really important point. So let's go into the artificial sweeteners myth, because this is it's that appeal to nature fallacy that gets me the most. So what's the issue with the artificial sweeteners? What's the claim?
Like the stuff that I see most often is like they're not, like they're artificial. It's there in their name, so they can't be really good for you. And it's like just because they're not natural, like doesn't mean that they're not good for you. There are a lot of things that are not natural that we do, like phones, laptops aren't natural either. But so that's this like appeal to nature fallacy is so easy to believe in, because you're like, that's not natural, can't really be good for you if it's created in a lab or something. And this is why it's so common. I believe this is why I believed in it as well, because I was like, something that's
it makes sense natural, doesn't it?
Exactly, it just made sense. It's only when you look at the research, the countless number of researchers done on this topic, that you realize it's fine. Like it does absolutely nothing, at least in the dosages where someone will consume them.
That's a super important point, because a lot of these studies are done on rodents, and they are kind of also we're not anatomically and biologically the same as rats, fortunately. But they're like normally like super dose as well. So by the time you like extrapolate that into like a human consumption, I think
I once did that, I think for a post or something. So like I don't remember the study right now, but they were giving rodents like a super high dose of aspartame it was. And I extrapolated that to humans, to myself basically, that on my weight, if I was having that much amount of aspartame, how much would it come out to be? And it came out to be, I still remember the number because it was so ridiculous. It came out to be 87 cans of Coke Zero every day. And I was like, if I was having 87 cans of Coke Zero, I would be fucking living in the toilet.
You've got other serious problems.
Yeah, so aspartame is the least of my issues at that point.
I think you would like crap your pants, have a massively elevated heart rate and not sleeping because of the caffeine, and you probably have drowned. Like you'd probably have like
exactly that was my thing
from the level of like liquid.
I was like,
before the aspartame, like actually
30 liters of liquid that I'm consuming, even if I'm not having anything else, that's still way too much.
Yeah, I think the FDA like safe limit is, that sounds like that's kind of what you've worked it out based on, and that's what they're saying is like, that's like super cautious, and like maybe don't go over that. But I think if you look at like the levels of actual like dwelling into like potential toxicity, it's like obscene numbers. Like I think it's like 15 or 1600 cans a day before it would actually become like toxic. And if
Yeah,
you're consuming that many, then
I don't think,
I
like
mean,
I have, my
congratulations.
intake is pretty high. Like I have about, I'd say, a liter to 2 liters of Coke Zero every day.
Mm,
That's on the high side. Most people don't even have that much. But even with that intake, I don't think I can have like the amount you're quoting even in a month, let alone in a
yeah,
day. So yeah, it's
it's
just
crazy.
ridiculous.
It's crazy amounts. Just going back to the like the appeal to nature fallacy as well, and why like the natural claim is such a joke. And I love this. This is just one of my favorite things to contextualize that next time you're thinking about that and you're thinking of siding with something because it's natural. Like, don't remember everything is in nature is not necessarily safe either. Like apples contain cyanide, but again, the poison is in the dose, so you'd probably have to eat, I don't know the numbers, but really extreme quantities of apples and eat all the pips, I think, which is where the cyanide is, like to even get close to, like you're gonna have a like more of an upset tummy before you die from cyanide poisoning.
Yeah, like I think I said this on a story. I was like, petrol is natural,
Yeah.
but I don't recommend you having it
No.
because, like,
Sharks are natural, don't recommend swimming with them either. Bears, I mean, look, we could go on. But yeah, so basically the fact it's like natural, just don't
I
worry
don't
about
know if you've seen though. In Pakistan, I saw this, I think, last year, where you know how stevia is technically natural, like
it.
it's
Yeah,
a natural sweetener, and then stevia companies started promoting themselves like that somehow it was superior to artificial sweeteners just because they were natural, and I was like, oh my god, here we go again. So yeah, that appeal to nature fallacy just works, but like it's got no substance behind it. It's just
it's
something
kind of,
that,
it is kind of, there's an irony, isn't there, in the fact that like the more natural, quote unquote, not perhaps not synthetic, perhaps not lab created sweetener has kind of gone to war with the one that is maybe not just, you know, plucked straight from a tree and slightly processed, whatever. I don't know the processing behind stevia or whatever or anything else, but like it's bizarre, yet people have an issue with them like as a whole, and you're like, well, what do you want? I think there's you know, people will like, there's so many shoot off arguments, we won't get into them all now, but there's so many spin-off arguments that are about artificial sweeteners, like spiking insulin, stop you losing fat, like heart disease. Like there's crazy other like levels of misinformation,
yeah,
which
they stop you
to
losing
me.
fat, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know if you've heard, like, when I started having Coke Zero and being a trainer and a nutritionist, stuff that I used to hear all the time was like, how are you having this? This is worse than regular soda. And I was like,
yeah, worse
first up,
than,
regular soda
yeah,
is also fine as long as you're managing your sugar intake, your
yeah,
calories, and stuff like
yeah,
that. But this isn't worse from any angle.
yeah.
So, yeah,
I still
I
get
don't.
funny looks sometimes when I'm like drinking a diet drink, and you can see it. You can see it. Like if somebody wants to have a conversation about it, I'll have a conversation about it. Sometimes just get you
Yeah,
just get,
yeah.
yeah. That's one of
Like
the
there
things
was a
that
time
blows
when
me
I
away.
started having Coke Zero just to like start that conversation with
I
people.
do. I go on like consultations with Pepsi Max because I'm like, if somebody's got any worries about this, they're going to use this console to say,
Yeah, that.
Pepsi Max, like, is that okay? So anyway, fun times. Right, let's move on. Another favorite, fasted cardio for fat loss, as in being a superior form of exercise or augmenting your kind of overall fat loss efforts.
Where do you think this myth comes from? Like the reasoning behind
Again, it comes from like, it's I'm going to really struggle to explain this. You might have to kind of kick in, but I think it comes from like something. Most nutrition and fitness myths come from something that is kind of somewhat true, but then just gets completely misinterpreted. So I think this comes from this idea that, like, if you're doing fasted cardio, you're using fat as fuel in that state, and therefore that temporary like fat oxidation is like translates across the whole rest of the day, and oh great, you don't have to bother doing anything else to look after your fat loss efforts.
Yeah, I think the reason behind this is also because like magazines and newspapers kind of take that and like turn it into a big headline, and then it becomes like a thing, because like most people are not nerds like us and reading researches, so they just look at the headline and be like, oh wow, fasted cardio does burn more fat. And yet, while yes, they like, that's not incorrect, that is still true, but the effect is like over the course of the day it evens out, because like if you're burning more fat, like yes, you will burn more fat at that point because you're fasted, you haven't eaten any carbs or anything for that matter, so where do you think your body will take energy from? It will your fat stores. But then later on, when you have food, when you have calories, it kind of evens out, because then you're eating most of your calories, most of your carbs later on, so then your body will use those to like take energy from. Whereas maybe if you had carbs before your workout, it would have burned carbs, but then later on it would have burnt fat for energy.
I think it's again like people like put so much emphasis on like what happens in like 30 minutes of their day, and like it's almost like fuck the other 23 and a half hours. Like that kind of matters, because again, you talk about like fat oxidation, but what people don't pay attention to is the fact that your body switches between fat and like carb as fuel, like just all through the day. It's just like a little, like, I'm going to oversimplify it now and scientists are going to come for me, but like it's kind of like just a little lever, isn't it? It just kind of switches on and off through the day.
Like when you're asleep, you're burning fat.
Exactly. So I know. Yeah. But then
let's just start sleeping 24 hours a day.
I know. And that, again, you know, we know sleep actually is quite a useful tool for fat loss, but not because you're burning more fat when you're asleep. So it's just like the silly, like, oh, that's really appealing. It is. It's like, that's going to make a really appealing headline. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, I do blame like a lot of like the fitness publications for really sticking a halo on this one and making such a big deal about it. Like in the last, I guess, 15, 20 years, like the same way they all went after the afterburn effect as well. And like, I know you've busted this one massively, but again, it's like, okay, yeah, that if you do like a certain form of exercise, you might burn like a really negligible amount of extra calories after the exercise is finished. But
study showed 26 calories. Like, oh
yeah,
my God.
like nothing. It's just nothing in the scheme of like, if you take an average person, their energy expenditure, for argument's sake, is 2,500 calories. What difference does that 26 calories actually make? Like, do HIIT because you like it. Don't do it because you think you're going to get this like magic. I used to go to classes, and this is a true story. I used to go to classes in the gym before I started like properly resistance training. And this was at the point where this, I think it was, oh God, I don't want to say names, because if we put this on YouTube, we're going to get in trouble. But let's just say a specific well-known coach who talks about the body. Very curly hair, and talked about broccoli and midget trees. I think he's retracted a lot of this as well, but it was also the one that said the calories didn't matter. So he's got everybody's back up over years. But I remember him specifically. That's why he really promoted HIIT. Didn't promote HIIT because perhaps it's just, you know, a really efficient way for somebody to like get a bit of, you know, exercise done in like 20 minutes. Like some people quite like that, like exhaustive exercise, like they feel like they've done something, feel like really accomplished. No, it was all because of this afterburn effect. So I had this instructor in a gym class saying, she literally advocated us just eating whatever we wanted then for the rest of the day. Oh, you can do the class and then you're going to carry on burning calories for like a whole 24 hours afterwards. So you can basically eat whatever you want. So everybody would leave the class and then we'd all go downstairs to the cafe and then we'd all sit around and eat cake. Which in the scheme of everybody's life is like, that's no bad thing. I'm all for like, you know, it's, you going to the gym shouldn't be about like burning calories. So if you want to go to the gym and then stop by for a piece of cake, like you go for it, like have that awareness of the energy balance. But it was literally an advert for, you can do this class and then eat whatever you want, and basically your body will just torch all the calories. I was like, and I believed that. I just thought that must have been a thing.
Yeah, similar to this, like the myth of cheat meals, I once believed in that. So uh, also the reason behind that was because I was going to these classes, hit classes, and we were on like, now that I have the knowledge, we were on like extremely restrictive diets. Because like I recently once calculated, because I still have their meal plan that they sent me, and I was like having 1400 calories a day, and doing hit. And so every Saturday we used to have like a 3 hour window. They specified you have 3 hours, you can eat whatever you want. And like that's what screwed up my relationship with food. But
Oh,
like for
wow.
those
Yeah.
3 hours, I legit, like every week I probably had like 8 to 10,000 calories within those 3 hours. Like I used to restaurant hop from one restaurant to the other restaurant, having food that I wanted, and
Wow.
then I wondered, I've been doing this for 3 weeks. Why the fuck am I not losing any fat?
On your 1400 calorie diet, like the whole rest of the week.
Yeah. And I remember like once bringing this up to them, and I'm like, I've been doing everything to the T. Why am I not losing fat? And they're like, are you having mangoes? I was like, yes, I have mangoes only on Saturday. And they're like, that's the reason. I was like,
Oh,
oh
it's
my
the
God.
mangoes, of course. Of course, it's the mangoes and not the other tens of thousands of calories of probably highly ultra processed, highly palatable food that just goes
Yeah,
down
they were
like
like, mangoes
easy.
are extremely high in sugar. So like, oh, they're high in sugar. What do you think I'm having for my other 8,000 calories on Saturday?
With your restaurant hopping. Yeah, that's this whole like, did they talk much in that context about like the reason was about it kind of stoking your metabolism? Basically, you get a
Yeah,
big
definitely.
uptick of calorie burn.
Like because your metabolism has slowed down over the week, so you need to rev it back
Oh,
up.
I see. Revving up the metabolism like a motorbike.
Yeah.
Oh God. Again, because probably it kind of comes from like a shred of something. So we talk about like the thermic effect of food. So if you have a
Yeah.
large meal or you have a meal containing a lot of protein, like it takes the body a little bit more energy to process it and digest it. And you know, we've all been there after like a big meal. Like you have this like little maybe fractional uptick in your digestion, your thermic effect of food, which might burn like a tiny fraction of calories. Again, probably
Yeah.
like single, maybe bordering on double digit.
Like average DEF, let's say, is 10%.
Yeah.
So like if I'm having 5,000 extra calories, oh wow, I'm burning 500 calories. But what do you think happens to the other
Yeah, exactly.
4,500
Yeah.
calories that are left over? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think what we're arriving at is like all of these things kind of come from somewhere, but they just get totally blown out of
Out of
proportion.
proportion.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and again, to like make something attractive, like why wouldn't you be attracted to an idea of like, right, if you can just hunker down and be on these low calories like Monday to Friday, then it's 3 hours on a Saturday where basically you can be a complete arsehole and eat whatever you want. You're like, oh, okay, great, yeah, count me in, I can do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on in the interest of cracking on. Protein shakes, I know this is like a real like personal one for you, and I think this comes up a lot with your clients. What's the deal?
This is like, out of all the myths, this is probably the one that like boggles my mind the most, because I don't know where this come from. I blame doctors,
Yeah.
at least in Pakistan. That's where my blame goes. Because like, and this has happened with me recently. I just got like a complete medical profile done, because I personally believe you should get it done once every 2 years or so.
Yeah.
So before we were coming to Dubai, me and my wife got complete profile done, and uh, 2 3 things popped out that I wasn't expecting. Like I was vitamin D deficient, even though I have like a really high vitamin D dose every day. But so when I went to the doctor uh, with those things, and I was like, what can I do for these things? literally his first question to me was, "Are you a bodybuilder?"
Oh.
And like that was kind of a red flag for me. I was like, I wonder where he's going with this. And he was like, I was like, yeah, kind of. I don't consider myself a bodybuilder, but okay, for the sake of this argument, let's say I'm a bodybuilder. So,
Mhm.
do you take supplements? I was like, yes and no. What do you mean by supplements? He's like, what do you take? I was like, vitamin D, fish oil, creatine, and protein powder, if you consider that a supplement. He's like, you should stop taking protein powder and creatine for a while. I was
Oh,
like,
and the creatine. Okay.
yeah,
Save
yeah.
another day.
I was more like annoyed by the creatine because I was like, I don't think I want to leave creatine. But so then I cross questioned him quite a bit, and he didn't have an answer for it. Like I was like, why do you want me to leave creatine? Explain the science behind me. I was like, I am a nutritionist. I know how the body works. Explain the science behind it, and I leave it. And he had no answer behind it. He was just like pretty much gaslighting me, but like there was no substance behind his claim. He was just like, just don't take protein. He was like, you can have chicken, you can have beef, all of that. Just don't take a protein powder. I was like, so I can have yogurt, milk, cheese? He was like, yeah. I was like, am I then not still having whey? He's like, no, but it's processed differently. I'm like, oh my God,
Oh
I
my
would smack him. But yeah, so that like it's the doctors who I usually blame.
a bit like the appeal to nature with the sweeteners is an appeal to authority thing. And I don't want to like disrespect the entire medical community, but I do think there is that a lot of doctors don't get, especially here in the UK, don't get particularly detailed nutrition
Yeah. So I
training.
have a friend who's a doctor. She's just gone to UK for her residency or stuff. But she's also a trainer and a nutritionist.
Mm.
So I once asked her, I was like, remove your nutrition qualifications aside, as a doctor on your MBBS, how much nutrition do they cover? And she was like, we got 1 2 hour class on nutrition.
Mm.
That's it. I was like, what? 1 2 hour class? That's nothing. I can't even cover, let's say, energy balance in detail in 2 hours. Uh, so she was like, yeah, we don't get any nutrition training as such. And I was like, see, that's the thing. Because I've had so many arguments with doctors over the years. Doctors who are friends, dentists who are friends, who think they know more about nutrition per se
Mm.
than us nutritionists. And people believe them because we appeal to like
Authority. It's the yeah.
authority. Yeah, pretty
I
much.
got a stethoscope, so I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm sure you do.
I
And
got
like
my lab
lots of
coat
other
on.
things that I wouldn't want to entertain. I'm not leaving my lane to like diagnose somebody's skin condition or, why something else might be happening physiologically. Like I'm staying in my lane until somebody's go to the doctor. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got off topic, but the protein thing. So yeah, generally there's this kind of perception that like too much protein's enough. Do you remember the story a couple of years back about somebody that had been having a lot of protein shakes and basically sadly died, but what they didn't report was that this person had like this underlying, I'm sure it was like an underlying like kidney condition. And yes, it was a very sad story, but of course the media blew that into like, oh, protein shakes are bad for you and don't drink too many or you're going to die, which was just obscene. It was just a horrible set of circumstances, really.
Yeah, because like you need to break this down. What is in a protein shake? It's pretty much just protein coming from either whey or plant-based sources or beef or anything like that. And you're already having all of these in your diet. Like if you have milk, you're having whey. If you have cheese, you have whey.
Yeah.
You have yogurt, you have whey. So that's pretty much it. And I'm not saying protein shakes are essential. They're just something that makes life easier for a lot of people, because like the amount of protein that most people need to hit for their goals, it does become kind of boring to just have, let's say, chicken or meat. So
Yeah.
protein shakes are a good alternative. Also, they're extremely convenient. So like whenever I'm in a rush, I'll just make like a protein smoothie or something like that. Yeah.
Ready to drink one here?
I
25.
had this
No,
when I was
no
setting up.
sponsorship. I would love sponsorship, please. Because I drink these all the time.
That's the one thing I like about like
Yeah.
moving to Dubai. The first thing I saw was their ready-made protein shakes available here, which we didn't have in Pakistan. So anytime I'm out and about and I haven't had a meal, I just grab one and
That's
be like,
exactly it. Like this is exactly why I had this
yeah,
today. I was like, do you know what? I haven't had time to like I haven't prepared particularly well today. I know, slap on the wrist, but like I need something, and I probably should be like, ahead of myself a little bit more on protein today than I am. So chuck a shake in, it kind of fills a bit of a hole. Yeah, it's kind of ticked that box in terms of like contributing to my overall kind of protein needs for the day. And yeah, great. But
like
it's just like a food that you drink.
yeah, I think people don't really understand how much protein is important for you. Like just from a not from a bodybuilding or a fat loss or a muscle
Yeah,
gain perspective, just
just
like general
existing health.
immunity,
Yeah.
that. So, and most people, at least in Pakistan and even the subcontinent, aren't getting enough protein because, like, when I have clients come on board, especially like what I've noticed over the last 6 7 years, are females generally are lower in protein than men over here. And like when I say low in protein, it's usually like 20 25 grams a day,
Wow.
which is also mostly coming from, let's say, plant sources
Mm,
like carbs and stuff. So for them, for me to say you need to have, let's say, even if I do like a bare minimum protein content, it is still a lot of meat or like eggs or chicken for them to eat, which,
mm,
and they usually come back to me like, I can't eat that much meat because I'm just not used to it and stuff like that. So for those situations, protein shakes can be fairly handy.
mm.
But with that being said, if someone can have enough protein from these chicken, beef, fish, soy, all of that, then you don't also need to have protein shakes. Like
No.
they're just protein, they're the same as chicken.
Again, they
So
kind
yeah.
of like they've either got like devil horns on or like this halo thing. And it's just like, let's just neutralize it and like just understand it
Yeah.
for what it is and understand that it's got benefits from a health perspective, but also just general, having to grab something on the go. Like it's a good option. There's so much more accessible now. Like even plant-based proteins. The first time I ate a plant, I think it was like pea protein. The first time I had a pea protein shake at a fitness convention, I thought I was possibly going to die. It was just great. It was like drinking a drink that didn't even taste very nice, but it felt like it had sand in it. Like you imagine you're at the beach and like somebody's poured some sand and it was not the one. But I had one super recently and I couldn't remember the brand now, but it was totally different, like totally different. All this stuff's massively moved on. So, even if you're have a plant-based diet, or I mean, vegetarians are in a kind of slightly optimal position in that you're still predominantly having dairy.
Yeah.
But if you've got, a lactose intolerance, in fact, in that instance, you might want to just try a whey isolate. That's right, isn't it? I've got the whey isolate instead of whey concentrate. But if that still doesn't, if it still finds, it's upsetting because the whey isolate will have slightly lower lactose in. But if not, then plant-based proteins are so
Yeah.
much better than they were like even.
And we've also got like a million options now in plant-based proteins. Like there's pea protein, potato protein, wheat
Yeah,
protein, rice
soy.
protein.
Yeah.
Blends are also there. So
I think
uh,
I don't want to get too technical on this either, but I think what they're paying more attention to now is making sure there's complete proteins with like
yeah,
all of the amino acids, well, certainly all the essential ones in as well.
yeah,
Where that was always a bit of a blind spot before. Like if you were paying attention to that, you were like, oh, okay, I'll have that shake, but I'm gonna have to like eat this with it as well to like make sure I'm kind of covering all my amino acids base. But anyway, that's probably another one for another day. Shall
have
we
you
just
ever had
go
beef
on.
isolate?
Have I what? Tried?
Beef isolate.
No.
I promise you, it's worse than what plant protein used to be.
I'm glad I
I
haven't.
once
I thought I
had
was
it.
going to be missing out on something then.
I once had it, and I was like, if this is what protein powder was supposed to taste like, I would never have it. It was so bad. But
No, I mean, I'm all for like just honestly, like give me the other part of the cheese, put a nice salted caramel flavor on it, and that will just that will do me fine.
But I personally like, I just generally don't like protein shakes, like the taste of them. I've
Yeah.
barely found one that I really like. But like, it's that thing for me that sometimes you just need to be an adult and like have stuff for your health. Like
Yeah.
when I'm eating a salad, do I really want to eat the salad compared to, let's say, a burger and fries? Probably not. But like sometimes you got to be an adult and do stuff. So yeah, so I'll just still have it for the sake of my health, and then usually I have like Cocoa Pops with it. So yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I think we're kind of quite similar, that we like things that are like kind of sweet and not like, just I'm generally I would choose to like eat my protein sources as well, but like we were saying, just having another option if you're very busy, like people that do jobs where on their feet all the time, that can't necessarily afford to stop for a break to eat. We're not necessarily always going to be advocates of replacing whole meals, but if you're in instances maybe a couple of times a week where you haven't planned, which happens, we're human, but you need to kind of just
even people like in the corporate sector who are like stuck in meetings and stuff, you just take a protein shake with you,
just tide you over. Right, let's just quickly wrap up on the last one. We won't spend loads of time on this one, but Starvation Mode, which is one of my absolute favorites, and probably one of, I don't know, actually you might correct me on this, but I think this is probably one of the most like significant studies that was done in terms of like proving energy balance, really. The Minnesota semi-starvation study.
Starvation. Yeah, one of my favorites.
It's one of my
because I know that that study would not hold up in today's day and age. So I'm kind of glad they did it back then, because
I don't think you'd morally be able to do it. But it was a bunch of like conscientious objectors, right? People that didn't want to go to war. So did you know that?
You don't want to war, you can starve yourself.
Basically, we're going to put you in this trial, and you're going to have to exercise every day, and you're going to be on like, I think it was like 50%, like
it was a ridiculous number.
It was insane. So like for say for example a male whose average energy expenditure was like 3,000 calories, it's going to be like 1,500 calories, a bit not dissimilar probably to your semi-starvation diet that we mentioned.
They also believed in starvation mode. We had to eat food every 3 hours on the dot, otherwise we won't lose fat.
Oh god. So actually, a very important point, because we haven't unpacked what starvation mode is. So this is like this belief that if you just aren't eating enough, or if you diet for prolonged periods of time, that you will just stop losing fat. And like the worst case scenario for some people is they believe like it breaks your metabolism, basically. Like you'll break your metabolism, it's like not advisable, you go into starvation mode, you stop losing fat. And that typically happens because people are on a diet maybe for a period of time, or they've dieted quite aggressively, and then they see a plateau in their results. So the scales stop moving, they stop seeing any forms of like physical progress, and they just go, oh, I'm in starvation mode. But this study that we were talking about basically proves why that isn't the case. Do you want to take it from here?
So like, if anyone looks up the research, or looks up the just search Minnesota starvation experiment, and you'll see pictures of what those people looked like. And do you remember how long the study was? Was it 8 weeks, 12 weeks?
Let me check if I got a note on it. It was 6 months.
6 months, So after 6 months, just the transformations they went through, like they were pretty much skin and bones by that time. Which kind of did prove that starvation mode isn't a thing, because if it was, they would at one point pretty much stop losing fat, which they didn't. I also like talk about how it is sad, but so many people in the world are dying of starvation like every day, especially in like African countries and stuff. And like that wouldn't be happening if there was a thing called starvation mode, because like, how could someone die of starvation? So like, that's the thing, starvation mode is pretty much a non-existent thing. If you are in a deficit, if you're just in an aggressively low amount, eating an aggressively low amount of calories for a sustained period of time, eventually you will lose all the fat that there is on you and potentially die.
This is the problem, isn't it? Because people just think, well, I am still in a calorie deficit. But when you look at the study, like what happened over the period of the study is that the energy expenditure, so the overall calories that you're using, not just your basal metabolic rate, but all of it, came down by, I think it was an average of about 40%. And so that person's calorie needs were essentially fewer. So then you're kind of like digging away on the calories to make sure you're still in a deficit. Now this is obviously, it's quite an extreme example, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is that concept of metabolic adaptation, that when you are in a deficit over time, your metabolism will adjust and it will somewhat slow down, but like not to a point where you will stop losing fat. And even if that happens, that just means that you're no longer in a deficit on the amount of calories that you were once in a deficit, because A, your metabolism has slowed down, B, also you've lost weight, so you generally burn less calories now, because like if you were 80 kgs, you were burning a specific amount of calories to sustain that 80 kgs of body weight. But now let's say if you're 70 kgs, your body burn needs to burn less calories because it needs to sustain a lower amount of weight. So you just need to like, if you've hit a plateau, like you mentioned, you just need to like reduce another 100 or so calories and you will start losing weight again, because you're technically not in a deficit anymore. It's not that you're in starvation mode, you're just not in a deficit.
Sometimes people like, sometimes it happens where it's just the scales that plateau, but people stop paying attention to like other signs. So like keep an eye out for other signs of progress. Also, like, just be really honest with yourself. Like if you're tracking calories, for example, like, is that something that's slipping? Is there just like a bit of extra food coming in here and there? And some people like taking an extra 100 calories away is going to like put them in like even more of a deficit. That technically on paper that is the answer, but there's obviously going to be some people that they might have been dieting for a long period of time, they might just need like a period of time away from having fat loss goal, just not and that's not to like reset their metabolism, it's just to get a bit of extra energy in, like to kind of reduce any like the fatigue from dieting, just to have some more social occasions, like, those things that you tend to kind of reduce.
And also like life is so much better when you're not on a deficit, from all angles. But like something that I've noticed on myself every time I'm like on a diet, whether that's an aggressive diet or a regular like small deficit, my activity levels do fall. So I keep a track of my footsteps, let's say, and if I'm averaging 12,000 steps without doing any effort, that's just my normal step count, average step count, they will fall ridiculously, like 7,000-8,000 per day from 12,000 without like me making any conscious decision of reducing them. And not just that, something that one of my clients brought up with me was like, I use my hands to talk a lot. Like I talk with my hands. See this in all of my videos. But when I'm in an aggressive cut, I won't use my hands. And it's not a conscious decision. I'll just be like a zombie explaining something.
Like, can we just pause at this moment to just say how incredible the human body is, that it works this stuff out? Like it sees where you're just wasting bits of energy, and all it's basically doing is signaling to like stop wasting that energy, because actually we need that energy to like grow hair and do other bodily functions, help you breathe and everything. So it conserves the energy from like all the stuff that you tend to like waste. Like, I mean, in that situation it would be a waste. I'm the same, I'm all like handsy, and I know I'm
I get that. But then on the flip side, it's also cool to see that when you're getting that extra energy, your body's like, let's start wasting energy.
You're like restless, like going around. I'm on the phone, like pacing up and down.
So it's fascinating, but that's the science behind all of this.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. Starvation mode doesn't. The thing is, like, I'm always quick to say it doesn't exist, and it doesn't exist in the form that people think it does. But I think it is important to recognize that what happens is like there is an effect from dieting. And that's where people just kind of like mistaken it. And I think the key thing is like making sure people are reassured that it's not because your metabolism's broken, it's just adjusting itself to the energy that you're giving it. And if you just put a bit more energy back in the tank, then you'll find it just kind of corrects itself again. So it's not like a forever thing. Don't worry, you didn't break your metabolism because you dieted like 16 times. Like, that's not a thing. Don't worry. Cool. I think we should do more of these in future. So please like get in touch, leave comments, let us know what you want, other fitness and nutrition myths that you want us to cover, or if any of this is like you've got a bunch of questions, let us know. Remember to subscribe to the channel as well if you're watching this on YouTube, and you'll see some other cool stuff coming. But for now, we'll sign off, and thanks for joining.